How did one trade route change the world forever? The Silk Road Part 2. The Silk Road connected civilizations, facilitated trade, and changed the course of history. But no empire lasts forever. What led to the decline of the world's most important trade route? Was it war, shifting economies, or something even more devastating? In this episode, we uncover the plagues, power struggles, and political shifts that sealed the fate of the Silk Road. Throughout history, war has shaped the destinies of civilizations. The Silk Road was no exception. As empires clashed for control over trade routes, the stability that once allowed commerce to thrive began to crumble. From the Crusades to the rise of the Ottoman Empire, conflicts turned once thriving trade hubs into battlegrounds, causing significant disruptions to trade. Let's explore how wars reshaped the Silk Road. The Crusades, a series of religious wars between Christian Europe and the Islamic world, disrupted Silk Road commerce. European forces sought to reclaim Jerusalem, but their invasions also interfered with well-established trade networks, making long-distance trade riskier and less profitable. Crusader states in the Levant imposed new taxes on merchants, increasing the cost of goods and discouraging traders from using these routes. The constant warfare between Christian and Muslim forces destabilized the region, forcing merchants to seek alternative routes. At its height, the Mongol Empire provided unprecedented stability for Silk Road merchants. The Pax Mongolica guaranteed safety, allowing trade to flourish. Under Mongol rule, merchants enjoyed protection from bandits, and the Mongols even implemented postal relay stations that sped up communication across their empire. However, as Mongol rule weakened, local warlords and fragmented successor states made trade routes far more dangerous. With the disintegration of Mongol authority, lawlessness returned, and merchants faced greater risks of robbery and extortion, discouraging long-distance trade. By the 15th century, the Ottoman Empire became a dominant power in the Middle East. Their control over key trade routes between Asia and Europe led to increased taxation on merchants, driving European powers to seek alternative sea routes to the east. The Ottomans, seeing the lucrative nature of the Silk Road, placed heavy duties on goods passing through their territories. This move significantly impacted trade profitability and played a major role in motivating European explorers to find direct maritime routes to Asia. The discovery of new sea routes, such as Vasco da Gama's journey around Africa to India, marked a turning point that further reduced reliance on the Silk Road. Wars didn't just occur between empires. Internal conflicts within regions also contributed to the Silk Road's downfall. Cities like Samarkand, Bukhara, and Baghdad, once flourishing trade centers, were ravaged by civil wars, invasions, and changing political dynamics. Many rulers imposed heavy taxes on merchants to fund military campaigns, further discouraging trade. Meanwhile, in China, the decline of the Yuan dynasty and the rise of the Ming saw a shift in economic policy, with the Ming government initially promoting naval trade over overland routes, weakening the Silk Road's importance. The repeated cycles of war, conquest, and instability eroded the very foundations of the Silk Road. Merchants, once eager to make the long journey across Eurasia, found it increasingly difficult and dangerous. Many shifted their focus to safer, emerging trade routes by sea, permanently altering the course of global commerce. By the end of the 16th century, the once dominant overland trade network had largely been replaced by a new, ocean-based global economy. War wasn't the only threat to the Silk Road. One of the deadliest pandemics in human history spread along these very trade routes. The Black Death changed everything. The interconnected world that had allowed cultures to flourish now became the perfect mechanism for the rapid spread of disease, leading to unimaginable devastation. The bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death, originated in Central Asia, likely in the Mongolian steppes. It traveled westward along the Silk Road, carried by merchants, travelers, and even fleas on rats that infested trade caravans. The Mongols themselves, known for their expansive trade networks, unknowingly facilitated the disease's movement into major trade hubs such as Samarkand, Baghdad, and Constantinople. From there, ships carried it to the ports of Europe. Within a few short years, the disease had reached every corner of the known world. The impact of the Black Death was catastrophic. In some regions, up to 50% of the population perished, causing widespread economic collapse. Labor shortages led to inflation, and entire villages were abandoned. Once thriving trade cities like Kashgar and Bukhara saw their marketplaces empty as merchants and workers alike succumbed to the disease. The ripple effects of the plague were felt for centuries, disrupting dynasties, economies, and entire societies. With major trading hubs in decline, merchants became reluctant to travel long distances. Many sought alternative, localized markets, reducing the once vast network of interconnected trade routes. As fewer caravans braved the journey, the profitability of maintaining the Silk Road diminished. The once thriving cities along the route fell into decay, signaling the slow death of the world's most vital land trade route. The Black Death not only reshaped economies, but also changed the political landscape. Many ruling elites, seeing their populations devastated, struggled to maintain power. Revolts and uprisings erupted across Europe and Asia, leading to new governance structures and policies. The plague indirectly contributed to the weakening of Mongol rule, the restructuring of European feudalism, and the emergence of new, centralized states. While land trade routes declined, new maritime trade routes emerged, marking the beginning of a new global economy. The discoveries of sea routes to Asia and the Americas forever changed the dynamics of international trade, shifting commerce away from the overland Silk Road. But how did this transformation happen? As the Silk Road became more dangerous and less profitable, European nations like Portugal and Spain sought new ways to access the riches of Asia. The fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Empire in 1453 further limited European access to the Silk Road, accelerating the need for new routes. Visionary explorers like Vasco da Gama and Christopher Columbus set sail in search of alternative paths to the east, leading to the discovery of maritime routes around Africa and across the Atlantic. The discovery of new sea routes led to the rise of European colonial empires. Portugal established control over major trade routes in the Indian Ocean, while Spain conquered vast territories in the Americas. The Dutch and British followed, forming powerful maritime trading companies like the Dutch East India Company and the British East India Company. These entities monopolized global trade, reducing the significance of the overland Silk Road. Once the beating heart of global commerce, cities like Samarkand and Bukhara struggled to compete with the new maritime economy. Overland trade became less attractive as ships could transport goods faster and in larger quantities. As wealth shifted to European coastal cities like Lisbon, Amsterdam, and London, the once great trade centers of Central Asia lost their prominence and faded into history. The transition from overland to maritime trade was more than just a shift in geography. It was the beginning of the modern global economy. The integration of the Americas into world trade networks, the spread of European influence across Asia and Africa, and the rise of global capitalism all stemmed from this pivotal transformation. The Silk Road may have faded, but the principles of interconnected trade it established continue to shape our world today. The Silk Road, once the backbone of world trade, could not withstand the combined forces of war, disease, and economic shifts. But its legacy lives on. Modern global trade still reflects the patterns established centuries ago. The question is, are we witnessing a new Silk Road emerging today? With China's Belt and Road Initiative aiming to revive ancient trade routes, history may yet repeat itself. Subscribe for more deep-dive geopolitical content. Leave a comment. Do you think China's modern Silk Road project will be successful? Next episode, the return of the Silk Road, China's global strategy.